Factoring basic standard form. Standard form is when you have three terms, ax squared plus bx plus c. Remember that terms are separated by addition and subtraction, and a, b, and c are your numbers. An example would be like 2x squared plus 3x minus 5. Notice that a would be 2, b would be 3, and c would be negative 5. Standard form always has three terms. When we first start factoring standard form, we start off with the basic kind, and that's when a is 1. The reason a is 1 is that when you multiply and create a standard form, notice how the coefficients of x and x are 1 in each case, and 1 times 1 is 1. Factoring when that a is 1 is much easier. Let's take a look and see if we can figure out how to do that. The secret to understanding how to factor is understanding how to FOIL. Notice that when I take x times x, I get x squared. Then I take x times 2 and I get 2x. I take the x to both. Then I take the 3 to both. 3 times x is 3x. 3 times 2 is 6. Simplify the middle. X squared plus 2x and 3x make 5x. X squared plus 5x plus 6. This is a standard form, and the coefficient of the squared term, the a, is 1. It's much easier to factor. Factoring this will turn it back into the original question, x plus 3 times x plus 2. To figure this process out, we need to look at the three cases of the signs, both positive, both negative, and a positive and a negative. Let's try the next one. Distribute the x to both. X times x is x squared. X times negative 4 is negative 4x. Take the negative 3 to both. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. And negative 3 times negative 4 is positive 12. Again, simplify the middle. Negative 4x plus negative 3x is negative 7x. I get x squared minus 7x plus 12. See how the signs are different? When they're both negative, I end up with a positive 12, but notice how I added negative 4 and negative 3 to make negative 7. Last example, I'm going to take x to both. X times x is x squared. X times negative 4 is negative 4x. Take the 6 to both. Positive 6 times x is positive 6x. And positive 6 times negative 4 is negative 24. Again, the middle simplifies. It's a negative and a positive. Notice above that my signs were plus 6 and minus 4, a negative and a positive. Negative 4 plus 6 is positive 2. And then I have that minus 24. What we need to look at is how these signs above affect these signs below to understand how to factor. Now imagine, look at the first question that I did in black, that we were asked to factor this question. Start off with two sets of parentheses, and you know that when you FOIL, it's x times x to make x squared. You know that this last number times this last number makes positive 6. There are two ways to make positive 6. It could be either two positives or two negatives. The clue that it's two positives is the fact that the middle is positive. Notice how positive 2 plus positive 3 made positive 5. So again, let me say that again. You know that the last number times the last number makes positive 6. It could be two positives to make positive 6, or it could be two negatives. If the middle is a plus, you know it's two positives. Now you need two factors that multiply to 6, but notice how 2 and 3, they added to 5. You need factors of 6 that add to 5, and they are 2 and 3. When you look at the next one, you know that x times x is x squared. You know that this number times this number makes positive 12. The signs could either be two positives or two negatives. Now, there's two ways to make positive 12. If you look in the middle's a minus. That's the clue that it's two negatives. And you need two numbers that multiply to 12. They're both going to be negative. Here they are. The two numbers that multiply to 12, but they add to negative 7. And that is negative 4 and negative 3. Notice how negative 4 times negative 3 is positive 12, and negative 4 plus negative 3 is negative 7. All right, last example. Imagine we're trying to factor this. We know that x times x makes x squared. We know that this number times this number makes negative 24. If two numbers multiply to a negative, that means one's got to be positive and the other's got to be negative. Now, I need two numbers that multiply to 24, but one of them is positive and one of them is negative. When you add a positive and negative number, think about it. 5 plus negative 2, we subtract in our heads. 5 minus 2 is 3. 5 plus negative 2 is 3. So a good way to think of it here, at least to find your numbers, is I need factors of 24. One will be positive and one will be negative. Yes, they're going to add to positive 2, but think in your head, can I find two factors of 24 that subtract to 2? Notice how 4 and 6 subtract to 2. So when I place them, though, when I FOIL, notice right up here, when I FOIL, they really added to positive 2. You have to make 4 and 6 add to positive 2, which tells you that the 6 has to be positive and the 4 has to be negative, because positive 6 plus negative 4 makes positive 2. And there it is. Now, this seems all a little fuzzy because it normally would be for anybody at this point. What you need to see are a few examples. But always refer back to this and think how you FOIL. Remember that you're always adding two things to make that middle term every single time. And you're always looking for factors of the last number that add to the middle number, including in the last example. It's just that it was positive 6 plus negative 4 made in the middle positive 2. One more time. You're looking for, change colors here, you're looking for two numbers that multiply to the last number, in this case multiply to 6, but they add to the middle because you're always adding those two numbers to make the middle. Here are two examples. If I try to factor this, I know that when I FOIL, x times x makes x squared. I know that this number times this number makes positive 24. There's two ways to make positive 24. It could be a positive times a positive or a negative times a negative. The middle term is positive. That tells you that it's two positives. You need two numbers that multiply to 24 because this number times this number multiplies to 24. But remember, I add those two numbers to make the middle. They will add to 10. Well, look at factors of 24. They're 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. It's got to be one of these factors, and they have to add to 10. Hey, there it is, 4 and 6. It does not matter where you put the 4 and the 6 because x plus 4 times x plus 6 is the same thing as x plus 6 times x plus 4. When you multiply, the order doesn't matter. 5 times 3 and 3 times 5 are both 15. Next example. I'm going to factor this. I know that when I FOIL, x times x is x squared. This number times this number is positive 32. It's either going to be a positive times a positive or a negative times a negative. Those are my only choices, two positives or two negatives. This middle is a minus. It's got to be the two negatives. I need two numbers that multiply to 32, but they will add to negative 12. Now, don't worry about the negative. Just find two numbers that multiply to 32 that add to 12, because I know the signs are both negatives. Well, 1 and 32 are factors of 32, 2 and 16, 4 and 8. Looks like it's 4 and 8. Negative 4 plus negative 8 they add to negative 12, and negative 4 times negative 8 multiply to positive 32. Last two examples. Let's factor this one. X times x is x squared. This number times this number is negative 40. If two numbers multiply to a negative, one's got to be positive, one's got to be negative. And you could go minus plus instead of plus minus, but you got to put the numbers in the right spot. It will matter here because the signs are different. I need two numbers that multiply to negative 40, and they will add to negative 6. Now, I mentioned this before. It's actually easier to think, because one will be positive and one will be negative, can you think of factors of 40 that subtract to 6? Well, 1 and 40, 2 and 20, 4 and 10. Oh, there it is, 4 and 10. When I place them, it matters where I put them, because they have to add to negative 6. I have to make 4 and 10 add to negative 6. Well, that means it's got to be negative 10 and positive 4. So positive 4 and negative 10 are what it is. Again, the process is positive 4 times negative 10 makes negative 40, and positive 4 plus negative 10 make negative 6 in the middle. All right, last one. X times x makes x squared. This number times this number makes negative 45. It's got to be a positive times a negative. I need factors of 45. One will be positive, one will be negative, and they will add to the middle, positive 4. But again, because I got a positive and negative, it's really easier to think subtract. Can you think of factors of 45 that subtract to 4? Well, I've got 1 and 45 and 5 and 9, and there they are. Now, yes, they subtract to 4, but when I FOIL, remember I added the two things in the middle? They really add to positive 4. One is positive, one is negative. In other words, 5 plus 9, I got to make that the middle, positive 4. One is positive, one is negative. Well, it's going to have to be positive 9 and negative 5, because positive 9 plus negative 5 is positive 4. Positive 9, negative 5. And there it is. One way to get help finding factors is use a factor table. You can create that with a graphing calculator or a spreadsheet. I created a Google Sheet spreadsheet. You need to make your own copy though. If you go to my classroom webpage, and the link is in Google Classroom under Classwork, click on Resources, and then under Other Links, you'll see the Google Sheets factor table. You need to create your own copy. This can be very useful if you end up with big numbers like 96. It's not easy to find factors of 96 that add to 20. A factor table makes finding these numbers much easier. Let's factor this question. To use the factor table, all you do is in the yellow box, you plug in the last number, in this case 96, and it will list the factors. Now you're going to ignore the decimals, you only want whole number factors. These things are not factors. Ignore all the decimals. But I can easily see the factors of 96. 1 and 96, 2 and 48, 3 and 32, 4 and 24, 6 and 16, 8 and 12. Just scroll down this list to find what you need. So if we factor this one here, we know it's x times x is x squared. We know that this number times this number makes positive 96. So it's either two positives or two negatives. We have a negative here in the middle, so it's got to be the two negatives. I need to find factors of 96 that add to 20. And they're going to add to negative 20 because the signs are two negatives. So look down the list and find two numbers that add to 20. It looks like it's right there, 8 and 12. Not going to matter where I put them because the signs are the same. The remainder of this video is questions from your assignment. This first question is review. It's foiling, first, outer, inner, last. This is just a special case of the distributive property. Take 5x times 3x, 5x times positive 5, 1 times 3x, and 1 times 5. 5x times 3x is 15x squared. 5x times positive 5 is positive 25x. Take the 1 to both. 1 times 3x is 3x, and 1 times 5 is 5. Simplify the middle. You get 15x squared plus 28x plus 5. Question 3 is a review of greatest common factor. Notice how 4x and 8x both have a 4 in them. The greatest common factor is 4, and they both have an x in common. 4x times the first spot makes 4x squared. Well, I need one more x to make x squared, minus 4x times the second spot makes 8x. That would be a 2. When every term is negative, like this next one, usually you take out the negative as part of the greatest common factor. 6 and 12 are both divisible by 6. So negative 6, and both terms have an x in them. X is my greatest common factor, negative 6x. Negative 6x times the first spot makes negative 6x squared. Well, that would be an x. Negative 6x times the second spot makes negative 12x. That would be positive 2. Notice that when you take a negative out inside, both terms have their sign change. In this case, both are positive. For the next one, both have an x in them. X times x minus 9, because x times x is x squared, and x times negative 9 is negative 9x. And for the last one, both have a 3 in them, and both have an x in them. 3x times the first spot makes 3x squared. That would be an x. Plus 3x times the second spot makes 9x, and that would be a 3. Now we have a standard form. Remember that standard form has 3 terms. It has a square, a middle, and a number at the end. I need 2 things that FOIL to this. Z times z is z squared. This number times this number makes positive 20. So it could be either 2 positives or 2 negatives. The middle sign is a plus, so it's going to be the 2 positives. I need factors of 20 that add to 9. 1 times 20, 2 times 10, 4 times 5. Oh, there they are, 4 and 5. It does not matter where you put them since both signs are the same. Z plus 4 times z plus 5 is the same thing as z plus 5 times z plus 4. Question 5. W times w is w squared. This number times this number makes positive 40. It's either going to be 2 positives or 2 negatives. The middle's a negative. It's got to be the 2 negatives. Factors of 40 that add to 14. 1 and 40, 2 and 20, 4 and 10. Also 8 and 5, but notice that it's 4 and 10. The signs are the same, so you can place them in either order, and there's your answer. Question 6. I know that y times y is y squared. This number times this number makes negative 40. If 2 numbers multiply to a negative, one's got to be positive, the other's got to be negative. I need factors of 40. Now to find them, they will add, keep in mind they'll add to negative 6, but to find them, it's easier to think subtract. When your signs are positive and negative, think subtraction for a moment here. Factors of 40 that subtract to 6. 1 and 40, 2 and 20, 4 and 10, 8 and 5. Hey, there they are, 4 and 10. Now, as I said, they really don't subtract to 6. Remember that when you FOIL, you add 2 numbers to make that middle term. Really, they add to negative 6. I have to make 4 and 10 add to negative 6. One's positive, one's negative. That's going to be positive 4 and negative 10. Negative 10, positive 4. Question 7. We know that w times w is w squared. This number times this number is positive 42. The signs are either 2 positives or 2 negatives. The middle is a plus. It's going to be the 2 positives then. Factors of 42 that add to 13. That would be 6 and 7. 6 times 7 is 42, and 6 plus 7 is 13. Question 8. I need two numbers that multiply to 69, but they add to negative 26. This number times this number is positive 69, so it's either two positives or two negatives. The middle is a minus, it's going to be the two negatives. Now, factors of 69 that add to 26. If you need help, you can go to the factor table and look at the factors of 69. Ignore the decimals. Not a lot of options here, are there? 3 and 23, hey, those add to 26. 3 times 23 is 69. 3 plus 23 is 26. 3 and 23, and I can place them in either spot because the signs are the same. Question number 9, our last example. Y times y is y squared. This number times this number makes negative 36. If two numbers multiply to a negative, it's got to be a positive and a negative. Factors of 36, one's positive, one's negative. When you add a positive and negative number, it's easier to temporarily think subtract. Factors of 36 that subtract to 5. That would be 4 and 9. 4 times 9 is 36. 9 minus 4 is 5. As I've said, you always add two things to make this middle term. It's going to be a 4 and a 9. They have to add to negative 5. One's positive, one's negative. Negative 9 and positive 4 add to negative 5, so negative 9 and positive 4. Just a reminder, you can always check each answer very easily. FOIL it out. If this doesn't FOIL to what you started with, something went wrong. Notice that if you take the y to both, y times y is y squared. Y times negative 9 is negative 9y. Positive 4 times y is positive 4y. And positive 4 times negative 9 is negative 36. Simplify the middle and you get y squared minus 5y minus 36. We know we did it correct, and this is our answer.